Hello, part 3 of blood. Here we go, chapter 14. When I left you last, we were about ready to look at blood groups. Excuse me. Now, blood groups, first off, a little terminology. You need to know the term antigen. An antigen is on the surface. This is a marker. And each individual has its own antigen. And it's the antigen that allows the body to distinguish its own body from foreign invaders. Now, the thing that attacks the antigen is an antibody. The antibody is the blood plasma that will bind to the cell and they corral it or destroy it. And then they basically mark it, and then the immune system, the phagocytes, come and eat it. Okay? Antibodies, bad. Antigens, good. So antigens are on the surface and antibodies are in the plasma, and antibodies will attack antigens. Okay, now that we look at that, let's look at the blood groups. So the blood groups, first off, if we go to the Alberta or the Canadian Blood Services, you will see that there are positives and negatives. We'll deal with those separately, but let's just look at the groups. You can have A, B, AB, and O. The most common type of blood is actually the O blood type. And then second is the A, and the least common is AB. Okay? So most common is O. O positive, that's me. O positive, B positive. I gave blood a lot in university because that was in the 80s before the whole tainted blood scandal. And pretty much we'd all go for donuts. They brought in donuts and everyone would line up just to get the donuts. And you'd give blood and then give donuts. No big deal. Now that my blood's a little older, it's not as, it's got some weird antibody in it. So I can't give blood like I used to. So give it while you're young before your blood gets weird. So when we look at A, B, or O, those are blood groups. So when we look at, and it has to do with the antigen on it. So when we look at blood A, it has a blood type. It has the A antigen and the B antibody. Okay? A antigen, B antibody. So these little hats are A. And the B antibody. Okay? So they won't attack each other because they're fine. Good. Then, if we continue to B blood has the B antigen and the A antibody. So, if those two are mixed, there'd be a problem. Then, AB blood has both A and B antigens and no antibodies, so it can't attack anything. Then, O blood has no antigens and it has both A and B antibodies. I don't know if you can tell these are different colors. There's green and yellow. So you've got A and B antibodies. So when it comes to getting blood type, when you have a transfusion, you want to give your blood cells to someone and you don't want the antigens on the donated blood cells to attack or be attacked by the antibodies in the person's plasma. So, O has no antigens on it, so it can be donated to anyone. And this is why O is the universal donor. Okay? And that's because it has 0 antigens. Okay. Did I spell antigens right? Sure. Anti. Yes. Against. 0 antigens on the cells. Okay. It's the universal donor. When we look at AB blood has no antibodies, so it can't attack anything. But it's got A and B antigens. So AB blood is the universal receiver. So that means it can take any blood. So to begin with, you can take your own blood type. And O blood can be given to any blood type because it doesn't have the antigens that would cause agglutination is the fancy word for clumping, and you die from it. And AB blood has no antigens. AB blood has no antibodies, so it is the universal receiver because it won't attack anything. Okay, so that is the A, B, and O's. There is a TED Talk or a TED Ed talk on Blackboard that has blood types. It goes into a little more detail. I'm just trying to focus on it, summarize it. Okay, rhesus factor. The positives and the negatives. What they found is with rhesus factor, there is a Rh positive and Rh negative, and it is called rhesus after the rhesus monkey that it was discovered in. So when we look at Rh positive means you have the antigen in your blood. Rh negative means you don't have the antigen. So this is really only a concern when you are getting the second dose. Initially, if your blood does not contain any antibodies, but if you introduce the positive blood in, it will develop the antibodies because it's foreign. Not a big deal the first time because the antibodies are just there and they will destroy the positive away. No agglutination. The problem comes when there's the second interaction of the Rh positive red blood cells. Then they will cause agglutination. And agglutination is just really, it's not really clumping. It's when all the antibodies come together and they form a big chain. So they agglutinate. Okay? So this isn't a big deal unless you get the factor the second time. Or if you have a baby inside you. So if the mother is Rh negative, and then the father would be Rh positive. So positive is dominant. The baby would have Rh positive antigens. If there is no mixing of blood, the baby will be born no problem. But there could be a tear, there could be some sort of fetal mixing. That's because the mother doesn't have any antibodies to begin with. During the birthing process, however, those positive antigens will get into the body. And then since the positive antigens have got into the mother's body, the mother will make antibodies against the Rh factor. Not a problem until the second fetus arrives. Now the antibodies can cross the the placenta or the child-mother barrier. And since they can cross the placenta, they will then agglutinate the baby's blood, and often the baby is stillborn or a miscarriage occurs. And quite often a lot of people don't realize that they have this positive-negative interaction until they have a couple of stillborns or miscarriages. This isn't a problem until the blood mixes, but as soon as the blood mixes and those positive antigens get into the negative mother, then the antibodies are made. Now, there is a shot that will be given to mothers to prevent the formation of antibodies. And then if you don't have any antibodies, you don't have a problem. Here is a beautiful word for those of you who like Latin breakdowns. There we go. Look at this one. Erythroblastosis fetalis. Erythro is red. Blastos is forming. Condition of fetus. So it is the condition of forming red blood cells in the fetus, which will develop a problem because the antibodies are destroying the baby cells. Again, not a problem unless the mother is negative and the baby is positive and the blood have mixed. If both are positive, not a big deal. If both are negative, not a big deal. If the mother's positive and the baby's negative, not a big, well, that won't happen because they'll both be positive because positive is dominant. Okay? Good. So that is the end of chapter 14. It's a big chapter. There's a lot of terms. Make sure you look at all the terms here and go over the test your knowledge question because this one has a lot of detail. The only thing I went into in detail that you don't need to know is all the different clotting factors. You just need to know the end part, that prothrombin activator takes prothrombin to thrombin, and then thrombin then converts fibrinogen to fibrin. And you also, I went into a little more detail into the white blood cells than you'll be tested on. Okay? And that is the end of chapter 14.